Take a breath with me for a second and consider something strange. There are seasons in a human life when certainty grows quiet, the maps we trusted fade. The language we once spoke no longer explains the road ahead, and we find ourselves walking not forward, not toward answers, through experience itself. The ancient Stoics believed life was not meant to be controlled, only met with steady breath, with clear sight, and with the spirit strong enough to face reality as it is. Because struggle does not arrive to break us. It arrives to turn the wheel, and when the wheel turns, what lives within us is revealed. Hardship strips away illusion, effort sharpens attention, and resistance becomes a teacher. The fire refines, and somewhere inside that fire, resilience becomes sacred. Welcome back, my fellow strangers, to another episode of Traversing the Strange World. I'm your host, Isaiah Danbury, and this is another Thursday journal, Notes from the Strange World. Last episode I talked about the ones in between, the people who leave one world, but haven't fully arrived in another, and I realized something afterward. When belief collapses, the first thing that survives isn't your theology, it's your body. Your breath keeps moving. Your heart keeps breathing. Your heart keeps beating. You wake up the next morning whether your worldview makes sense or not. I used to think my spiritual journey was about finding the right answers, the right doctrine, the right philosophy, the right idea of God. But somewhere along the way, it became a question of resilience. How do you live when certainty dies? How do you walk forward when the map you trusted disappears? I want to talk about the philosophy that started forming after my old world fell apart. A spirituality of resilience. Life didn't pause while I figured things out. I still had to wake up. I still had to work. I still had to face uncertainty without knowing what any of it ultimately meant. I started to discover Stoicism. Epictetus, a great Stoic philosopher, lived much of his life without physical freedom. Marcus Aurelius, a great Stoic philosopher and a Roman emperor, wrote personal reflections while surrounded by war, illness, and uncertainty. Stoicism was not born in peaceful monasteries. It was forged inside difficulty. The Stoics didn't ask, how do I avoid hardship? They asked, how do I become the kind of person hardship cannot destroy? They trained awareness. Notice your thoughts. Notice your reactions. Notice sensations of anger, fear, grief, and desire throughout your body. Not to suppress them, but stand inside them consciously. To recognize that between what happens to us and how we respond, there is space. And in that space, something sacred begins. And in a strange way, the Stoic and the shaman arrive at a similar realization. Reality is experienced through the senses, breath, sound, pain, and stillness. Peace doesn't come from escaping experience. It comes from meeting experience fully awake. I realized I wasn't searching for a new belief system. I was learning how to endure existence itself. Stoicism didn't arrive as an ideology. It arrived as recognition, a language for something my life had already begun teaching me. I didn't rebuild my life by solving existence. I rebuilt it by learning how to stay present inside of it. And once I began reading the Stoics, it felt less like discovering something new and more like remembering something long ago, ancient and forgotten. Resilience begins in the body. Before beliefs stabilize, before meaning returns, the body keeps going. Your breath continues. Your heart continues. You move forward even while your worldview is falling apart. Even figures far removed from Stoicism notice this truth. Aleister Crowley believed spiritual development could not be separated from physical endurance, and he didn't only write about transcendence, he climbed mountains, dangerous expeditions into high-altitude environments, where philosophy stops being abstract and starts becoming a matter of survival. Cold, exhaustion, thin air, exposure to nature without comfort. Transformation happens when the body meets resistance. Stoicism stopped being an interesting philosophy and started becoming a way of living. And around the same time I began discovering Stoicism, I also started getting back into physical fitness. After I started my business, I had used the busyness of my work life as an excuse not to pursue these goals anymore. But I was getting back into it. I wasn't preparing for a race. I felt like going on these long distance runs. I wanted to be alone with my thoughts. And running became a type of meditation. Started going farther than I ever planned. 10 miles, 14 miles, sometimes 20. No finish line, no medal, no audience. Just long stretches of road and my own thoughts. And I began to notice something strange. The same lessons I was reading in Stoicism, the same lessons I was learning from the Stoics, were happening in my body. And at a certain distance, running stops becoming exercise, and it starts becoming confrontation. Because when we're separated, we're facing a challenge, the will is revealed. Our determination is revealed. The thoughts that lie deep within our unconscious come out, they emerge. The struggle brings them out. The running was a meditative experience. The breath, the footsteps, the wind, the fatigue. I still remember running down a snowy road in the middle of the wintertime, listening to an audiobook. How to Think Like a Roman Emperor, The Stoic Philosophy of Marcus Aurelius by Donald Robertson. The wind on my face, the ice hanging from my beard. I was alone, completely alone with my will and determination and all the thoughts that come with it. No theology, no arguments, no metaphysical certainty, just presence. And I began to understand why Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to return to the present moment. Not because the present moment is the easy place, but because it's a sacred place. Because it is the only place resilience can exist. Running became my meditation, not my escape. A time of awareness, each mile stripping away distraction. Pain arrives. You noticed it, you notice it, you adjust it, and you continue. The Stoics would call this living according to nature. The mystics might call it prayer without words. Somewhere on those long, unnecessary miles, I realized resilience is not aggression against reality, it's cooperation with it. Marcus Aurelius wasn't writing philosophy for an audience. He was writing reminders to himself late at night in military camps, surrounded by war, political pressure, and illness and death. His journal wasn't a declaration of wisdom. It was an act of resilience. And Epictetus began life without freedom. He was a slave. He understood something most people never confront directly. That you may not control your circumstances, but you are still responsible for your character. Some things are within your control, and some things are not. And most suffering comes from confusing the two. You cannot control outcomes. You cannot control other people, but you can train your response. You can train attention. You can train perception. You can train the way you meet reality. After deconstruction, this mattered deeply, because when belief systems collapse, you realize how much of life was built on the assumption that reality would behave the way you expected. Stoicism asks something different. Not is the universe fair, but can you remain steady whether it is or not? And as I just mentioned earlier, the Stoics often spoke about living according to nature. They weren't talking about trees, rivers, landscapes. They meant something deeper. The nature as reality itself. The unfolding order of existence. The rhythm that moves through everything, whether we understand it or not. The animating force. Marcus Aurelius referred to this as the logos, a rational structure woven into the universe, not as a distant deity watching from above, but an intelligence expressed through reality itself. Mystics had something similar to say. The divine is not somewhere else, it is encountered through presence. Founder of Hasidic Judaism, the Baal Shem Tov, taught that divine presence could be encountered in joy, tension, and daily life itself. Not only in sacred spaces, but in breathing, walking, working, and living. During those runs, during quiet moments after deconstruction, I began to sense something similar. A feeling that existence itself was meaningful, even if I could no longer define that meaning the way I once had. The Stoics gave me acceptance, and the mystics gave me wonder. Together they allowed something new to emerge. A spirituality without fear. I stopped asking, is God exactly as I thought? And started asking, what if the sacred is experienced whenever I meet reality honestly? I no longer experience God as an answer, but I experience God as participation. Maybe traversing a strange world doesn't mean solving existence. Maybe it means learning how to walk through it with attention and resilience and reverence for the mystery unfolding around us. Struggle does something strange to the human being. It turns the wheel. And when the wheel turns, what was hidden inside us rises to the surface. Comfort allows us to imagine who we are. Struggle reveals who we actually are. The Stoics understood this deeply. Hardship was not an interruption of life. It was life revealing itself. Every challenge exposing attachment, fear, ego, and expectation. The mind becomes honest. The senses sharpen. The unnecessary falls away, and we begin to see what has been living quietly within us all along. I've come to think of resilience as a refiner's fire. Fire does not destroy gold. It removes what is not gold. And in the same way, hardship burns away illusion. The identities we clung to, the stories we told ourselves, the certainty we thought we needed, until what remains is much more simple and true and alive. Sacred resilience is the realization that struggle is not separating you from life. It is initiating you into it. Every hardship, every refining perception, every challenge shaping character, every loss revealing what truly matters. We discover that resilience itself becomes a form of prayer, the quiet agreement to live fully, even without guarantees. Alright, my fellow strangers, I think that's where I'm going to end this journal entry. Let me know, my fellow strangers, what is a life philosophy that helped you traverse through life when certainty was absent? While you're around, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, until next time, let's keep traversing this strange world. Let's always be present. Let's always be introspective. Let's always be inquisitive. Let's always be neighborly to folks, because we're kind of just thrown into this life thing. So at the end of the day, we're all just strangers in a strange land. Until next time, peace.